Wait, say that again. You need tips and tricks for what? Logic? Awesome. I can do that. Let's talk about that today. Hello, this is Dussan again after 2 years of being absent from this YouTube world.
So for the people who might not know me already, I am a composer for film, TV, multimedia, living in New York, and I did my master's degree at NYU, and I'm now working in the industry out here in New York City, which is a lot of fun actually.
Today is a really important day because I am restarting this YouTube channel. And that means that we're gonna have a lot of fun and we're gonna learn a lot. And I'm gonna get to show you a lot of this stuff that I've been doing in these 2 years. I am definitely gonna tell you all about that, but let's focus on what we need to do today. First of all, we need some coffee, because that's so important, and this is actually really cool. It's a new mug that I got from Fellow. The coffee in here has been hot for 4 hours, and it's still steamy, and that's crazy. It also has this very strange device inside that you can actually take off, and that allows me to just do this. I can not spill my coffee on all my equipment and have to spend another $1,000 on everything, which is probably a good thing. Thank you, Fellow, for this. This really makes my life a lot better. Now, to the main topic of the day, my favorite Logic Pro tips and tricks. Here we go.
I dropped an album called Voyage about a month and a half ago, and it was a very intense form of expression of my music, and I'm just gonna use the sessions from that album as an example for these tips. So feel free to go ahead and check it out on Spotify. I'm gonna put a link down below in the description so you can check it out. Welcome to my Logic world. This is a session from my album Voyage, and as you can see, it's pretty massive. It's got a lot of tracks, and there are a ton more tracks that are hidden in the back end. I'm gonna exemplify my tips and tricks for Logic today so you guys can learn a little bit of what I'm talking about when I actually work on my projects. So the first tip I wanted to talk about is the capture recording.
Capture recording is probably the tool that I use the most in Logic Pro because it lets me record without actually recording, but by playing.
It's actually this thing here. It's similar to the record button, but it has a white circle surrounding that red button. And you can use it pressing Shift R, but I'm going to show you how I use it so you can maybe try to use it yourself. So it's basically Logic listening to you playing, and after you stop or while it's playing, you can record MIDI information into the timeline. Now, disclaimer, this method only works with MIDI. It doesn't work with audio because that wouldn't make a lot of sense. So we're going to try this out here on the empty side of the session. So the steps to use capture recording are basically 3 steps. Step number 1, you just play your session. Step number 2, you start playing music on your MIDI instrument. And then after you're done, you can stop and then press Shift R. And what it does is that Logic just shows you what you just played, and you can actually just open it up in the piano roll.
This tool is really helpful for my job because sometimes when I'm composing, I am also improvising, and I like to improvise. I am a natural improviser. I would just improvise for an hour or 2 and then take a lot of ideas from that session and develop them into a composition. So this is useful because I don't have to be worrying about improvising something and then not remembering it. I can just play the session and do as much stuff as I need to do within the session, as long as I always capture record everything. And I also don't have to be worrying about hitting record. That also makes me a little anxious sometimes just to see the red playhead going. It's weird. It is psychologically very stressful to be under the pressure of recording, so I guess this makes my brain work a little easier and more creatively.
Part of the tips that I'm showing you today are things that I've learned in the last couple of years that I've used constantly in order to improve my productivity and my efficiency and logic for composing music for film. And I just wanted to share that with you. And maybe you can use that too. The second tip of the day is a playback tip, and it's fairly simple to explain.
I use two main shortcuts to make my life a little easier and save more time when recording and playing back. Shift and play is the first one of those tricks.
One of the things that I really like to do is play from a region. And to do that, I just need to select one region and press Shift Play. That is two actions basically on one shortcut. The first action is that it takes the playhead to the beginning of the region, exactly to the beginning of the region, and then it plays. I can do that with any region or group of regions in my session. Let's say, for example, that I wanted to start playing from the beginning of these percussion regions. I would select them first, and then I would do Shift Play. So that's kind of how it works, and it's really simple. It's a really simple tip, but I found it really useful for specific tasks, like going to different parts of the session without having to move the playhead, which I always hate to do this. Another sub tip that I can talk about to move the playhead a little bit easier than just like going up here, moving it like this, or doing it this way. You can just place your click wherever you want the playhead to be positioned and then hold Shift and click wherever in the grid. It's normally going to be on grid, so that was measure 59. This is really helpful, and it's part of the playback tricks that I had to show you. But there are a couple more tricks in that playback category. The next tip is that you can actually play from a marker the same way you can play from a region. So you remember how we did Shift Spacebar or Shift Play to start from the beginning of a region? We can basically do that also by selecting a marker and then doing Shift Space. That would essentially just play the session from the selected marker, so that is really nice. And if you're a person that likes to put markers everywhere, I would totally recommend following that. And the last playback tip for the day is just placing the playhead somewhere in the marker section. So if you, let's say you wanted to place your playhead from the beginning of a marker without playing back the session, you would just hold Option and then click on a marker. And that takes the playhead to the beginning that marker. Same for this one, same for this one, and same for this one. You can also do that when you have the globals closed. You can Option click on any of the markers and the playhead is going to be automatically positioned where it starts. So navigationally, this is super helpful. So there's the Shift Spacebar tip, which is this one. That is playing from the beginning of a region. It could be that, it could be this. Or it could also be from the beginning of a marker. So if you select your markers up here, and then Shift Spacebar. And the last one was to hold Option and then click on a marker to bring the playhead to that start position of the marker. Those are really nice navigational tips. these playback tricks also work flawlessly inside the piano roll, and that's actually a place that I spend a lot of time at. For example, if I wanted to shift click anywhere on grid just to get to that position, I could do it. Hold down shift and then click anywhere on the grid to move that playhead to that position. If I wanted to play from a specific MIDI note, I can just select that MIDI note and then shift spacebar. And that's automatically going to place the playhead in the beginning of that note, and it's going to play the session. The following tip is actually really great, and I use this all the time. I learned this like a year ago, and it's really cool. So let me show you what it is. Sometimes when I want to move a region from a part of a track to another part of a track, like moving a region in this massive session is really hard because, well, you could just move it like this and drag it, but then you can like accidentally put it in a different track. It's also really hard to just like be exact to where you want to put it. You would have to place it close to where you want it and then zoom in and then kind of like go there and place it manually. Well, there is a very easy way to do this in Logic, and it's you can just select the region that you want to move. The next step is to know exactly where you want the region to be. If I just wanted to bring this region to the very beginning of the session, I would just go ahead and place that playhead in bar 1, for example. And then instead of dragging this, don't do that. That's horrible. Please don't do that. Instead of doing that, I would just hit semicolon on the keyboard, and that automatically makes that region go to that new position. And I can do that with different regions without having to move my playhead. So if I wanted all these regions to start from bar 1, I can just select all of them and do that. And it's really cool and it's really simple, and you really save a lot of time and you save a lot of tears of messing up a session with 400 tracks. Like, let's say these very small tracks, it's just really hard to move them around and make sure that they are okay, especially these ones that they don't really start in the beginning of the measure, they start on the third beat of a measure. So you can displace all this rhythmic section really easily by using that shortcut. If you did that like this, it gets pretty hard. But then if you just know where you want it to start, if I wanted to start it from measure 119, I can just place the playhead there and semicolon, and that's going to move everything, which is really nice. I can also move each one of them individually to that position, and it's also really nice. The fourth and final tip of the day is called nudging.
Nudging is basically just moving a specific region or a MIDI note or something that is in the timeline, a marker also. You can move that by a specified amount. That amount can be a beat, a measure, a subdivision of your measure, an 8th note, 16th note, or it can also be smaller subdivisions like frames and subframes.
You can, of course, change the subdivision to move your regions, and you would do that by going to edit and then move and then set nudge value to something. So you can nudge the regions by bars, by beats, or even as small as frames or half a frame or even a sample. Right now my setting is on quarter notes, so that means that if I nudge these regions, they're going to move a quarter note to the right or a quarter note to the left. Now how do you do that? It's super simple. You just press Option and then right arrow or left arrow, and that's going to make them move by the specified amount of time. So right arrow, it's going to move everything to the right by a quarter note, and then moving everything to the left with the left arrow. It's very simple. Now let's try that out with a different nudge value. Let's try that out with the bar subdivision. So now if I hold down Option and right arrow, everything is going to move to the right by a whole measure. And if we really want to get small with it, we can move it by frames. And then I'm going to zoom in so you can see the difference. And now I'm moving by frames. Really useful for film scoring. Let's go to these timpani hits. And let's see what we got in there. So we have this. And by the way, I was using shift click to just move the playhead throughout the piano roll. You can just click on any part of the grid, holding down shift, and that's gonna take the playhead to that position. And so you don't have to just move it from the top or just like find it like here. So first of all, let's select the notch value. I kind of want to try the 16th note and see what that looks like. So I'm gonna go to edit here and then move, set notch value to, and then 16th note. I'm just gonna go ahead and select all the notes and start nudging by pressing Option, right arrow. Now everything has been displaced by 3/16 notes. Then I can go back to the initial position if I move to the left or right. It's actually really cool, and it helps a lot.
So I hope that you learned something new today, and if you didn't, just let me know. I can go a lot more in depth about all these things. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to hear more about what I do and how I do it, both in the virtual world, in my computer, and outside. How I get inspiration, how I write music, how I do collaborations with directors and stuff like that. Again, this is not the only way that you should do things in Logic, but it has helped me a lot. I was editing the video and I realized that I didn't shoot an outro, so I guess this is it. Thank you so much for watching, for returning to my channel, and for sticking with it, I guess. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and I'll see you very soon. I still gotta figure out a schedule for posting and all that kind of stuff, but I promise you that this time this is gonna be more frequent. Alright, I'll leave you there. Bye-bye.